right, I think we will go ahead and get started. It's right at noon. All right, thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. I want to first begin by introducing us. So my name is Jerry Frank, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of STRATAFOLIO. And with me today is two people you probably all know, Jennifer Clark and Emily Lidikin. Jennifer and Emily are both accountants by trade and know and understand commercial real estate leases quite well. Jennifer is our director of implementation, and she leads our full service onboarding team. Jennifer is a QuickBooks certified advanced pro advisor and a QuickBooks certified user. And Emily is our senior onboarding specialist, and she is also a QuickBooks online pro advisor. And with us also is Joe Venz. He's a risk advisor at First Main Street Insurance. He's very knowledgeable and experienced with commercial real estate and the insurance needs of our customers. So today we are going to cover quite a lot, actually. We're going to cover 4 specific topics. Mistakes, number 1, which is not reading or understanding your certificates of insurance. 2, what happens when your requirements in the lease do not match the COIs that were provided by the tenant. Mistake number 3, not tracking when COIs are expiring. And mistake number 4, not tracking your tenant COIs at all or on a spreadsheet. So we want you to bring your questions. And so if you have questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A, and I will address them as we're going through, or we may leave them to the end if it seems more appropriate at that point. But with that said, let's go ahead and kick this off.
All right. So, mistake number 1 is not reading or understanding the COI correctly. We have found while onboarding our customers at STRATAFOLIO that some of our customers run into issues with keeping track of their COIs due to them not fully understanding how to read them and understanding what exactly is on the COI that they've been given by their tenants. That is one of the reasons why we wanted to put together this webinar for you, to give you some more information and help answer some of your questions. So there are many different types of policies, and depending on the type of property that you have and the type of lease, there may be also a lot of variances from lease to lease. It is important to know how to read the COI and what it covers and what it does not. So Joe, we thought that you could go over some of the normal COI policies that we encounter with commercial real estate and how they differ from each other.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. And appreciate being included today. Thanks for everybody attending. A lot of what we get as far as questions from landlords or property owners is, help us understand. We've utilized a standard lease agreement. It has insurance requirements that have historically been in there. We understand our coverages a little bit, but help us understand the difference in what we're requesting from our tenants and what we're actually being provided with in the form of a certificate of insurance. So I listed some general policies here that most tenants are going to have, or they should have. General liability coverage is a third-party coverage, and for the most part, what it's going to do is defend against bodily injury or property damage lawsuits that are third-party related. So the most common one that we reference is if you are a store owner, you have your location, your premise is open to the public, somebody comes in, they slip, trip, and fall on premise, general liability coverage is going to be the one that responds and pays damages to that injured party. So when you're requesting it as a landlord, you're essentially making sure that that premise that your tenant is occupying, if they're inviting members of the public in, there's coverage that's going to protect the tenant themselves, but also you as the landlord based on requested language that you have. Property insurance is what I'm sure most on this call probably acknowledge they know that they have it, and maybe something that they're struggling with just based on the current insurance market. Property insurance is going to cover, first party what you own. And so you as the landlord, you likely have your own building insured on your lesser's risk property policy, but you want to make sure that your tenants are insuring the assets within your building that they're required to based on your lease agreement. So their business personal property, their tenants improvements and betterments, confirming that they actually have protection in place in the event that there is a loss at that location. And then the other one that I listed here is just an umbrella policy, which essentially provides coverage in excess of liability coverages that a policyholder has. So the common misconception is that, hey, my umbrella policy, it sits over everything. And most think of that as sitting over their property coverage. And for the most part, that is not the case. Umbrella policies provide additional limit for liability policies. So general liability, auto liability, and oftentimes employer's liability, which are limits that are on a workers' compensation policy. So oftentimes within your lease agreement, you're requesting these from your tenants, and just getting verification and making sure that these coverages are in place. Very important to do. The last thing listed here is just per occurrence versus aggregate. That'll be stated in most lease agreements, and you'll see it on certificates of insurance. Biggest difference there is per occurrence is the limit that is available for any one event that takes place. Aggregate limit is going to be how much limit is available for the entire policy period. So if multiple events occur, aggregate limit is going to be what's stated as coverage for the entire policy, which is typically on a 1-year term for the most part. So just some general discussion around coverage types and differences that you likely are and should be requesting from your tenants.
That's great information. Because we actually touched on this a little bit. We had a few questions ahead of time from our customers. And one of which said, if there's an umbrella policy listed on the COI, does that mean it covers automatically everything on all of the policies on the COI? So based off of what you just said, it's the additional over the general liability, correct? But not necessarily the property insurance.
Yeah, for the most part, it's going to sit over liability coverage in totality if it's written and structured right. So oftentimes you'll see on that certificate of insurance that there will be a section for general liability, for auto liability, and then for workers' compensation or employer's liability. If those are on the certificate and there's an umbrella policy listed, that likely, or it should sit over all of those coverages. But property coverage itself, what your tenant insures their own, business personal property, their assets for, that umbrella policy likely does not sit over any property coverage that's on the certificate of insurance.
That's great to know. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, mistake number 2, requirements in the lease not matching up with the certificates of insurance. Do you know what requirements are in your leases, and can you visually see if all of your tenants have valid COIs that meet their lease requirements? Most commercial leases have requirements for their tenant insurances. This is separate from your building insurance that can typically be reimbursed with CAM. Ensuring your COIs from your tenant meet the tenant requirements of the lease is essential to financial safety of your asset. We built our insurance and COI tracking feature of STRATAFOLIO based on a need we saw from commercial real estate owners and investors. We had heard of many instances where CRE owners have been on the hook during natural disasters because pipes froze, or hurricanes, or just accidents, and their tenants did not have the correct coverage required per their leases. We gathered information from both insurance agents like Joe and our clients to create a tracker in STRATAFOLIO that can really help. On situations where it is not clear on coverage, it may be necessary to ask your tenant for further information or clarification on their policies and coverages. Sometimes it may be that your lease requirements are outdated from what is happening in the insurance world. Requesting help from an insurance advisor like Joe with updating your terminologies in your lease on a regular basis to meet the most current insurance standards. It's also a good idea to ensure your insurance and the tenant's required insurance gives your real estate full coverage in the case of a disaster. Okay, so in STRATAFOLIO, you can find insurance requirements under each lease. It is the last tab to the right when you open up each lease abstract. This is where we have added during the onboarding process the requirements that are stated in the lease. As you add new leases for new tenants, make sure you are updating this information when you are creating it. We are going to cover how to input the requirements and upload the COI, as well as the visual view of the entire portfolio. There are a few places that we can add insurance requirements. You can add them from the lease abstract or from a tenant insurance view, which we see here. When you choose Add Insurance Requirement button, this form will pop up and you can enter if the requirement is needed or not. There's a little yes or no tag there. If there are no requirements necessary per the lease, we do typically still add any policy, since that's a required field with no selected for required. This allows you to still upload a COI to the lease, even if there are no requirements. If there are requirements, you choose yes, and you choose your policy type. General liability, plate glass, business interruption, workman's comp, etc. For occurrence amounts and then aggregate amounts, if applicable. If no specific amount is required, you can leave that part blank. The tenant requirement notes are seen by the tenant from the portal. Internal notes are viewable only by your organization's users that have appropriate access. The lease reference is a section or place you found the insurance requirement verbiage for ease of finding it again later. And then press save.
So STRATAFOLIO's AI for reading COIs is a proprietary machine learning model trained by our software engineers. So rest assured that your data is secure. We do not use public-facing AI models or LLMs, large language models. When you are prompted to, you can drag and drop a COI or browse for it on your computer. When we click process, it normally takes a few seconds to read your data and populate the next form for you. But depending on the quality of the upload of the COI, it may take up to 45 seconds. So our AI will do its best to preload the following form with the information from the uploaded COI. If the form is not fully populated, we apologize for the inconvenience. This just means something went wrong and we failed to process your COI. In some instances, if the quality of the COI is poor, or if the tenant gave you a form that's not the standard Accord form, the AI might not be able to get all of the information to the specific fields. If this is the case, you can try to upload it again and see if that works, or you can fill in the missing spots manually after you've tried to upload it. Make sure that when you are reviewing the information that it is filled in correctly to ensure the accuracy. Asterisk fields are required fields and you will not be allowed to save without filling them in.
So after you have uploaded the COIs and verified the information is correct, you can go to operations and then tenant insurance to see the entire portfolio of your tenant insurances. All of the insurance requirements and policies can be viewed all at once. You will see by our screenshot here that the green, yellow, red highlights are used here, just like a lot of other scenarios in Stratafolio. Green is good to go, satisfies all requirements as in an active policy. Yellow can mean expiring soon or just that it has an active policy. This just means that there were no monetary requirements per occurrence or aggregate. So any insurance policy fulfills this. Red is expired, missing a COI, or unsatisfied requirements. We'll share a link to our knowledge base at the end of the webinar so you can refresh your memory if you forget what any of the requirement statuses mean. The easiest way to get to our knowledge base articles is on the left-hand navigation on the bottom, or by clicking on the question mark next to the tenant insurance header. All the main views displaying all your data have a question mark in that same location across Stratafolio that when clicked, it will open a new tab on your browser displaying all related knowledge base articles to that view.
So now let's get into the actual download and what it looks like. So in here, you will see that we are going to start just from our main organization page. And then we're going to the operations and we're going to pick up the leases. We already have a COI for the pharmacy store. So I'm just going to type in pharmacy right there, and that's going to click up. In there, we're going to click on the insurance tab like Emily was just talking about. Here we have the 3 requirements that are added: general liability, workers' compensation, and automobile liability. Then we're going to click add a new COI. From there, again, you can find it from your computer, or you can drag and drop. So I have a sample COI right there, and I'm going to press process. That is going to get that going for us. So where is that? So again, this can take a couple seconds, just depends on how it looks. Here you can see the view COI. So you can see the COI in here. This is the information that it pulled again from the COI directly. In here, this is where you can select whether you would like the insurance agent to be contacted or not. So I'm going to select yes. Down here is our insurance policies. So this is for 100 Cardinal Row, Unit 100, the general liability. This is the information from the COI. So $1 million for each occurrence and $2 million for aggregate. Scrolling down, this is an automobile liability insurance, and this is the policy information and $500,000 for each occurrence. And then also for workers' comp was also on that spreadsheet or on the COI, and this is the information for that with 500,000 for both each policy and an aggregate. And then down here, data verification. By checking this box, you agree that the data was verified for accuracy to the best of your knowledge, and press save. Once I do that, it is going to come back to that same page. In here, you will see what Emily was just talking about the green, yellow, and red. This has an active policy, but because of the fact that there is no amount listed as required, it just says that we have an active policy, not necessarily how much. And this one is unsatisfied because the minimum requirement in the lease was 1 million, but the automobile insurance policy only had 500,000. From here, you can also look at the actual policy and what it looks like. So when you click on the policy, this is the same way as going into the tenant insurance this way. You can see all of that information here in the table with all of the information pulled in from the AI, including who uploaded it and when it was created. You can also, under the certificate details, download a copy of the COI. So this is exactly what that COI looked like. So you can see exactly what it came through. And you have a copy of it as well. Easy access for you to get to. Let's go back to our slideshow. Sorry. Okay. So now, next, let's talk about mistake number 3, expiring COIs and why that is an issue. Actually, before that, do we have a quiz, Jerry? A poll?
Yes, we do. How many COIs are in your portfolio are currently expired? So if you could just take a second and let us know. Okay, I think we can move on.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So next, let's talk about mistake number 3, which is expiring COIs and why that is an issue. We have seen several times that an expired COI has caused some serious problems for our customers. The one that I remember the most is the reason why we built the COI tracking in STRATAFOLIO when we did. We had a customer that was not as up to date with getting copies of the COI policies that they thought they were, and many has slipped by. Normally, that just happens. It's not something that's too big of a deal. However, during what we call the Snowmageddon in Texas a few years ago, they found out the hard way what happens when the coverage lapses. They were on the hook for the damage instead of the tenant's insurance company. This was a very costly mistake. So, Joe, I'm sure you have some stories yourself of how a big impact that you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. This is unfortunately more common than we would hope that it would be, but we see oftentimes many landlords are very good, or property owners are very good at, when a lease is executed, they go through and make sure that everything is provided for compliance reasons. So you get a certificate of insurance as tenant moves in. But again, those are typically on a 1-year policy term. And so if there's not a systematic process for updating those to make sure that insurance continues to stay in force and that there's a certificate showing that what is required within that lease is continuing to be renewed on an annual basis, that's where mistakes can come up. And so one case that I'm aware of is property owner, they had a restaurant within their space. They received a certificate of insurance when the tenant moved in. They had not received an updated copy at expiration. A couple of years into the term, there was a bodily injury incident that happened at the restaurant. So they had done some mopping, had not posted a caution sign, and one of the individuals within that restaurant slipped and fell. There was a head injury, pretty significant claim. And so property owner, if they had the verification of insurance that the tenant was supposed to be carrying, there would have been general liability coverage and an umbrella liability policy that would have listed the property owner as an additional insured on that policy. And so when the lawsuit, they named the restaurant and the property owner, most claimants' attorneys are going to bring in as many parties into that suit as possible. In this instance, the coverage had expired, or the policy was not renewed. And so property owner was not listed as an additional insured. And thus their insurance policy was the one that had to respond in that instance. Fortunately, the policy did respond, their own policy, and protected the property owner, but they're going to have a claim on their claims history moving forward when they do their renewal negotiations, or they look for other coverage options. And there's a number of things that could have even gone wrong beyond that, where coverage wouldn't have responded because of the way that an application's filled out, saying that you get certificates annually and you update those. Kind of a material misrepresentation if you're not doing what you say you do on your application. So long story short, this is I know that there's a million things to do when you are a property owner. It looks like Stratafolio, from what I've seen, has a great way to track this and to make sure that those are being updated or renewed on a annual basis, but an error that can be very costly for property owners if it's not addressed.
Yes. So actually, we do have a good way to track that. Thank you. Yes. Go, Emily, go.
So we have made it simple for you to replace the expired COI and Stratafolio with an updated one so that you don't skip a beat and you don't miss your expirations. We have multiple alerts that go out to users, tenants, and the insurance agent if you request that. We send alerts on 30 days and 7 days prior to expiration, on the day of expiration, and then 3 and 7 days after expiration. A lot of alerts. We can send these to the appropriate users of Stratafolio who are opted in for alerts, the tenants that have access to their portal, and insurance agents if you mark them to receive the alerts. The idea with sending alerts to tenants and insurance agents as well as you as the user is to automate that process for you. The goal is to have the tenant or insurance agent send it to you without having to request it. Stratafolio will continue to send alerts when the COI is expired until an updated version is uploaded as the replacement. So this is what the email alert looks like when it goes out. These are sent to the emails on file for your Stratafolio users, the tenant portal users, and the insurance agents if they are selected to receive them. If you click on the blue link for the policy, it will take you directly to the policies that is expiring inside of Stratafolio to upload that new COI. As an added bonus and time saver for you, tenants can also upload their own COIs via our tenant portal. They will process their COI through our AI just like you do. It will check the policies against the requirements from their lease for you. And as a user of Stratafolio, you can get an email alert to let you know that they have uploaded the COI and if it meets the requirements of the lease. All of the alert emails will continue to all parties until they are replaced with an updated COI. Make sure that you are uploading the new COI in Stratafolio as soon as possible to get the alerts to turn off.
So as most of our customers, when they start working with us, are working from spreadsheets, lots and lots of spreadsheets. We help them get organized and get all of their leases in one place. So why not the COIs as well? So mistake number 4, not tracking the COIs at all or using spreadsheets for tracking them. So there are some major disadvantages to tracking important information on spreadsheets. They're easy to forget to check the expirations. There are usually several different policies that are required, and some of those get missed. It's very hard to verify when they are meeting the required minimums. They are also burdensome to update with the new certificates. Then your document is on one drive or one Google Drive or another, and it's not normally is the same place as your spreadsheet. So you're having to open up different files all the time. The list goes on and on. And as we already went over, the last thing you want to do is to miss an expiration and then need the coverage. So after compiling data from all of our customers and consolidating it, we have found that using Stratafolio to track COIs resulted in an average time reduction of 85% for our customers. This saves them time, resources, and of course, money, all while making sure that their assets are protected in case tragedy strikes. So let Stratafolio help you track all of your COIs. The good news is that you already have access to this feature. The even better news is that you have access to it at no additional cost. There is no reason not to use it. You already know that we send you alerts for everything. Why not take advantage of these alerts as well? For those of you that may not have your requirements for the leases already entered, uh, let the onboarding team help you get your portfolio up to date and get the feature ready for you to use. If you have the requirements already added in STRATAFOLIO, it's as simple as using the AI feature to upload the certificates of insurance and start tracking them right away. We are here to help and offer additional services and support as you need it. So please reach out to us and let us know how we can help you get tracking.
We do have some links to helpful articles pertaining to insurance and COIs for our CRE assets. This is our knowledge base. It covers how to add requirements, upload COIs, and check the entire portfolio's visual of insurance requirement. Joe has also graciously provided us with a blog on insurance misconceptions. That link is also provided here for you.
So Jerry, I think let's open this up for any questions that have been sent.
Yes.
Do we have anything? Yeah.
We do have one question, and Joe, you had brought up the concept of the additional insured. And I know this is a question that a number of our customers have is, should they include additional insured as a requirement for their tenants? And I thought it might be worth us kind of going deeper into that topic.
Yes. The very short answer is yes, they should require it. If you want me to elaborate on that a little bit, it's essentially if you're getting a certificate of insurance and there's no language on there that states that you as the property owner is listed as an additional insured on the policy, what you're essentially getting is just verification that your tenants do carry insurance coverage, but there's no protection for you in the event that there is an incident and you are named. That additional insured status provides your entity the ability to utilize the tenant's policy if you're brought into suit related to an event on your tenant's premise. So we highly encourage property owners to require that. And the reality is most tenants, depending on the business type and who's providing the coverage, insurance companies have recognized and realized that this additional insured request is commonplace. And so most tenants' policies, they can purchase an endorsement, which insurance advisors should be recommending that they do. And it provides a automatic additional insured status if and when it is required by a written contract. And so in this case, if your lease agreement requires that your tenants provide your entity as an additional insured on their policy, the insurance agent should be able to review that lease, see that that's the case, and generate a COI showing that additional insured status on the general liability policy. So I know that that's a very long-winded explanation to essentially get to the conclusion of, yes, you should require it of your tenants, and that should not be a burdensome or expensive request for your tenants to satisfy that and be in compliance.
Thanks, Joe. That actually leads into another question that we have, and that is, what should be required in leases at a very minimum? Obviously, there are, different situations that would require additional insurance to be there, but what would you say at the very minimum should be required in every single lease?
Yeah, if I were back to I feel like the need to make a disclaimer that yes, every situation is different and unique, and tenants' abilities to secure coverages and different limits can all be unique. So with that disclaimer out there, minimum recommendation that I would have is that your tenants carry general liability coverage. They carry a $1 million per occurrence limit, $2 million aggregate limit, and they list you as an additional insured on their policy. In addition to that, based on their type of business, if they have any auto exposure, so if they have company vehicles that are going to be at your location or on your premise, I would recommend that they have auto liability coverage showing as well, with $1 million single combined limit in that AI status. And then if they have employees, which I suspect most of your tenants would, they're showing workers' compensation coverage with employers' liability limits that are 500,000 in each of the 3 categories. Those to me would be minimum standards, and then based on your lease agreement, what you require the tenant to insure as far as their own property coverage. If you state that they're required to cover obviously their own inventory and any tenants' improvements or betterments within the space that they occupy, I'd want to get verification that they have that coverage as well. So long-winded way, what we can provide to clients of ours that we engage with is just a sample COI, and then we work with our clients to review just their lease agreements that they're utilizing with their tenants and give them suggestions on recommendations that we would have for improvement. So general liability, auto liability, workers' compensation coverage, and then ideally some form of an umbrella, probably minimum $1 million umbrella liability as well.
Thanks, Joe. Another question that comes to mind based on our conversation in preparation for this was a couple of the policy leases that we've read recently reference glass plate insurance, or plate glass insurance, I should say. And through that conversation, it was pretty informative because we just assumed this was a current type of requirement. But through our conversation, what we learned was this is really sort of an outdated thing. And I wondered if you could talk about those situations when there are policies or requirements in a lease that are no longer up to standard, so to speak, and how owners should work through that.
Yeah, we see that pretty often that, and I get it, right? If you've been a property owner for, decades, you've probably utilized a standard lease agreement, and you may make updates every once in a while. One that doesn't get reviewed often is just the insurance requirements section, especially if there's never been, a claim or activity. I understand why it would be maybe lower priority to update than some of the other terms and conditions in those lease agreements. But the reality is you want that language to reflect the actual coverages that the tenant should be supplying. And if you're not reviewing those at least every few years, the language becomes outdated. So plate glass, you mentioned, decades ago, there was a lot of like glass mutual insurers that would pop up, and they would provide coverage for glass that was excluded on standard property forms, no longer common for tenants or individuals or companies to be carrying glass policies. And so if you're requesting that, that's outdated. It's outdated. And if you're actually getting verification of your coverages, that's going to be one that's non-compliant. You're going to have to go back and forth with finding in the form where glass is provided under the property coverage. So that's one that we see often. We also see, it was brought up in our discussion, a reference to all risk. insurance, which is a historical term used on property coverage that stated it's not a named peril policy. So it's not stating that we're protecting for these, 14 exposures, but we're protecting for quote unquote all risk. That is now outdated. The correct terminology is special form. And so our recommendation on these is making sure that you're having lease language that is current and that your tenants have the ability to actually secure and provide. Our recommendation would be to work with your, insurance agent who's placing your property coverage. Most of you are likely securing lesser's risk policies to cover your actual buildings and assets that you're leasing out. Those individuals should have the capacity and ability to review your lease agreements and just give you constructive feedback on what would be typical and standard for tenants to be carrying and what are reasonable requests for them, so your tenants can stay in compliance and you're properly protecting yourself. So I'd recommend working with your agent on that. If you don't feel you have the ability or if they don't have the expertise, we're always happy to work with new clients in that advisory capacity, but somebody should be giving you feedback on your lease agreements to help make sure that they're up to date and current with your requested requirements.
Great, thank you, Joe. Another question that we have is, what do you think, what would it cost me to have STRATAFOLIO provide update my COIs? And the answer for that is we charge $150 an hour so for those kinds of activities. So if you have some of those, please, and you need our help, just let us know. Jennifer and Emily and the onboarding team would be happy to provide help to get that done. So thank you everyone for attending this webinar about COIs and how we can help you. The thing to reinforce here is the fact that this is a part of every single subscription that you all have. So you may as well take advantage of it and take some of that burden off of yourselves and make sure that you're all taken care of. So if you need help with anything, let us know. If you are looking for a discount on any additional QuickBooks accounts, let us know as well, because we can get you a 30% discount for a year on that. Jennifer mentioned that we have our knowledge base out there, so definitely take advantage of that. You can type in COI and you'll see all of the articles associated with that. I did also want to remind you that we have a partner page, and under there you can click the earn or save and you can see who our partners are, and that is where you will see Joe. And as you can probably tell, Joe is a fantastic resource and someone we would recommend for any insurance needs. He not only has a deep experience in insurance, but he comes from a lending perspective as well. So he can definitely help you in a couple of different facets. We worked with him over the years and we routinely consult with Joe on a number of things. So he's a good person to reach out to. And based on the current climate of insurance, if you are looking for a second opinion on your renewals that are coming up, it might be worth shopping around to see what he can do for you. With that said, I appreciate everyone's time and we hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, everyone.